My name is not Keith, and I'm 47 years old. And what was the other question?
What do you do for a living?
I'm a London taxi driver. Because I think it might be able to help someone else who's going down the road or gone down the road that I've gone down. The reason I don't really want to be identified is because as a London taxi driver, we're talking about alcohol and drugs, and I've been driving members of the public in the past, and I wouldn't really want the authorities to know that.
I mean, you've been driving them when you've been?
Certainly hungover, not necessarily high. I would have used of a night time and then kind of woke up next day, and by the time I had myself some breakfast and some coffee and kind of got my act together, then I would have gone to work, and I would have thought of myself at the time as perfectly able to do my job, but with hindsight, I would have had very little sleep and would be quite ragged and probably not paying as much attention to what I'm doing as I should do. Unprofessional. My father died of alcohol when I was 12, and I was aware of the fact that he was a big drinker. The weirdest thing about my father dying of alcohol when I was so young was I couldn't wait to try it. I mean, as daft as it sounds, you would have thought I'd make my mind up not to go down that road, but no, in actual fact, I just couldn't wait to get going. I was quite looking forward to finding beer and drinking it and seeing what the effects were like and things like that. I had an uncle who would go down a pub and he'd leave us in the back of his pickup truck, and he'd go in a pub and he'd bring out half a brown ale or something like that, in a bottle. And we used to sort of nurse that for hours on end and think it was it tasted horrible, but but I used to think I was really grown up, and I loved my uncle for doing that. He's died of he died prematurely. He was an alcoholic, but I still have fond memories of him doing things like that with us. I started smoking when I was 12, and I eventually got to a stage where I was smoking 60 odd a day. And I had really bad bronchitis, and I'm asthmatic. By the time I was 14 or 15, the idea of not having a cigarette would have horrified me. As a teenager, I got into a lot of trouble, and I was put in a home, and within the home you were allowed to smoke, and so I had no fear of coming home at weekends and smoking around my mum. It wasn't really an issue. And I managed to stop smoking 10 years ago now. Even though I wasn't smoking tobacco, I was smoking plenty of other things. Cannabis was the first drug I came across, apart from alcohol, when I was late teens, 18, 19, something like that. I was living in Essex at the time, and I remember going out to a nightclub, and somebody had some. I remember we all went out from the nightclub to park car in the car park, and none of us knew how to make this joint. I remember we had these Rizzlers and we were fiddling around and trying, they were breaking, and none of us knew what we were doing. And we made this very half-hearted attempt at a spliff, and I remember smoking it. It was dreadful, and it had done nothing. But that was my first memory really around cannabis. Well, it was very gradual. Cannabis, became the norm, and I smoked that just as a constant, throughout my life.
And alcohol as well?
Oh, absolutely.
So, what was your drinking like around that? I've
always been a big drinker. Always been a big drinker. My mother was telling me that I was alcoholic from the age of 16. She knew, and I just thought that alcoholics were the kind of people that drank meths and slept on park benches, and I wasn't doing that, so I couldn't possibly have a drink problem. Certainly at a very young age, I would go out, get absolutely blind drunk, come home, I would wet the bed. When I was living with my mum, I had two younger sisters living at home. And I'd done things like I'd come home drunk. I'd go into my own room, go to sleep, wake up to go to the toilet. But instead of going to the toilet, I'd like wee up the curtains. And eventually, I couldn't really stay at home because I was getting the police coming round. I was quite often being locked up in police cells, drunk and fighting. Why do I think I was drinking so much? So, do you know, I thought it was normal. And as daft as it sounds, I just thought everybody was doing what I was doing. I didn't think I was being abnormal. My understanding around alcoholism now is that once you start drinking, you kind of like get a flavour going that makes you want to start drinking more. And I was totally unaware of that. I knew that I drank more than most people, and I knew that the more I drank, the more I wanted, which it never quenched my thirst. The more I drank, the thirstier I got. And but do you know what? I was 43 before the light came on and that knowledge became obvious to me. There were weird things I used to think, like it's part of being English, or why did I drink so much when I went down a pub? It was the pub's fault for having these bizarre opening hours. I can remember Sunday lunchtimes, it opened at 12 and shut at 2, and you had to wait hours until it opened again at 7.
And thinking about it now, with what you know now, why do you think you were drinking so much?
Yeah, I think I was drinking so much because I was alcoholic and didn't know it. I think that once I start drinking, me personally, whereas other people can have a few drinks, go home, I kind of don't want to go home. I want to carry on drinking. I always want to carry on drinking. I can remember late teenage years when I was about sort of 19, 20, that sort of age group. We used to go to a lot of parties, and I was smoking cannabis all the time anyway. And I remember these parties, speed was the thing that we used to take. And I can remember we'd buy a gram for a tenner, and I can remember having a girlfriend, and we used to split it between us, this gram, and we'd snort it, burn the inside of our nostrils out with this bleeding stuff. But we'd snort it all in one go. We'd be flying high all night long, and thinking we're having fabulous times and fantastic evenings. And we were young, and we were on speed, and I can remember feeling ill for days afterwards. But you know what? When you emerge from those days of feeling really rough and stuff, you never remember that rough you feel. You just remember the good times, always. And so when it came to the chance of doing it again, you didn't think, oh no, I'm not doing that because it was so rough last time. You just remember those few hours of of fun. No, not at all. No, it wasn't. I was born 62, and it certainly wasn't part of my schooling. It wasn't part. No way was I ever told anything about drugs. I guess I knew about. My idea of a drug addict was somebody that took heroin with needles, and they they slept a lot, and I knew very little else. Very little else. No, not at all. I just. I remember asking somebody, I explained I was in a home when I was in my teenage years, and somebody in the home had told me he'd taken speed, and I'd asked him what it was like, and he told me, well, you take some, and he goes and you could spend 2 hours talking about a cabbage. And I thought, that sounds great. There was nobody ever said anything bad about it, ever. I started working at a chauffeur hire company. And somebody within that company was taking cocaine, and it pricked my interest. Cocaine was explained to me as being the champagne of drugs, and my understanding of it was I was aware of these awful come downs that I'd get when I took speed, and I became aware of the fact that you took cocaine, you got the same high that you got with speed, but you didn't get the same come down that you got, and that proper tickled my interest. Because I hated the come downs, and I guess the first time I took cocaine, I was 20, maybe 21. It was very hard to get hold of. I remember it being about 60 quid a gram, and it was that was roughly what I was earning, in a day, then, and I was earning quite good money for my age then. But that was my first experience of cocaine. I loved the stuff. I thought it was great, but I certainly wasn't addicted to it, and it was just out of my reach financially. And so when I could afford it, I'd get it, and it was like that.
How often was that?
Probably sort of like once every month, 6 weeks, that sort of thing. As I got older, I'd use it, sort of recreationally. It did for me what I couldn't do for myself, which it gave me like I was a big drinker, and I had this habit of getting incredibly drunk and falling over and wetting myself and doing quite embarrassing things. And the first thing it did for me was enable me to drink more, and which was like at the time it was the answer to all my problems. It stopped me falling asleep, it stopped me falling over, it made me more confident to talk to females, if I'm honest, which was it was important to a single young man. It made me feel good, it made me feel, like I'd arrived, and I was a business. I felt invincible. I felt like that I just didn't feel vulnerable anymore. I was felt a bit vulnerable when I was younger. The beer fixed that, but then I'd drink too much beer and I'd ruin it. But the cocaine gave me a balance of being able to drink the beer that I needed to drink and talk with the confidence that I wanted to talk with. And it was I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I first took cocaine, as I said, in my early 20s, quite, fairly infrequently. And I got married sort of in my mid-20s, and me and my wife would use it occasionally, but it wasn't the be-all and end-all. We had more important things, I still like drinking a lot, and I still like puffing a lot, but the idea of taking speed and cocaine was a bit of a no-no, because it meant I wouldn't be able to go to work and I wouldn't earn the money to pay the mortgage, and that was more important at the time. I was 30 when I walked out on my first wife, and I started getting much more into using cocaine at weekends, a gram on a Saturday, a gram on a Friday, Saturday night, and that was kind of like normal with the crowd of people that I was knocking around with at the time. There was a bit of a shortage going on one weekend, and there was a crowd of people. It was a crowd of about half a dozen of us that were going in the pub, regularly meeting up, drinking in the pub, and taking sort of gram of cocaine or so each.
And you were all working people?
Oh yeah, from all various different sort of walks of life, but we kind of we all drank in the same pub. It was a local. We all knew each other quite well. So there was a shortage. And nobody could get hold of what we called Charlie at the time. And I knew somebody that was buying in kilos and selling in ounces. We had a bit of a whip round with me and my mates in the pub. And I approached this person, I bought half an ounce. And I went back to the pub, and I can remember putting this half ounce lump down on the pub table and trying to split it up between I can't remember exactly, it was 4 or 5 of us. And I remember getting a 50p coin and trying to break up this lump. It was, rather than coming as powder, it had come in a solid lump. I can remember getting a 50p coin and trying to break it up on the table, and bits of it were pinging off all over the show, and we were getting the giggles. And I can remember that night being a really good night, because for me what it meant was I'd got my stuff a lot cheaper than I was used to buying it, and it was a lot stronger than I was used to taking it. And it kind of planted a seed. I thought, well, why don't I buy it more regularly and sell it myself? Just sort of amongst the people that I knew in the pub. I remember going off buying some scales. I bought an ounce of cocaine, and I got some little plastic baggies that sealed at the top, and I got some white paper squared off. It was actually magazine paper, which we thought was the best sort of paper to wrap in your cocaine in. And I can remember my idea of marketing was actually to put my white wraps inside the plastic bag, which I thought that was a novelty, and people would like that. And I started selling it. I sold 0.4 of a gram and 0.9 of a gram. So I'd sell it, the 0.4s as a half and the 0.9 as a gram. And off I went. After I built up a customer base, I started mixing it up with with various things, sometimes crushed aspirin and things like that. But I wasn't aware that I might have been hurting anybody. I was just looking for something harmless to bulk it out with, to make more profit. I just used to use like on a Thursday, Friday and Saturday night, and sometimes like Sunday lunchtimes. But what happened was like you kind of you build up a bit of resistance to it, and because it was more freely available to me, my own drug taking it took off. It wasn't an overnight matter, but certainly over a case of say 6 months, it really kind of went quite out of control, and I wasn't capable of going to work anymore. As I say, I'm a London taxi driver, and I used to go to work sort of Monday, Tuesday to Friday, but I used to knock off early on a Friday, and I'd go down the pub, and I'd start selling stuff. I used to keep it in my pockets and sell it to people that came in, and then it kind of got to a stage where I'd do the same thing on a Thursday. I started doing it on a Thursday, but I wasn't capable, because I was using myself. I just wasn't capable of going to work on a Friday, and so I lost Thursday and Friday work-wise. Financially, I mean, I was so in debt. It was, at the beginning, I found I was going to work. I was earning quite good money doing what I was doing as a London taxi driver. Then at the weekends, I'd be selling cocaine in the pub, and not only was it paying for what I was using, it was kind of giving me a small amount of profit as well, which was great. It was a free party. But eventually, what happened is I wasn't earning any money, I wasn't making any money, and I was just losing money, perpetually losing money.
How much were you using then at that point?
Probably about a quarter of an ounce a night. I got tens of thousands of pounds in debt, tens of thousands, and I just could not afford. I hadn't paid the mortgage for months. I wasn't opening envelopes at home, and I was still continuing with this illusion of a party lifestyle and that I had money. I had a girlfriend that was screaming at me, stop. She could see the writing was on the wall for her, great big red letters. But I just, I chose not to listen to it. It weren't what I wanted to hear, and it was just because it would have meant stop using. I needed to crash. I needed some sort of crash before it ended. 4.5 years ago, I found out about a 12-step fellowship. Most people have heard of something called Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, somebody told me about a thing called Cocaine Anonymous. And I phoned up their helpline, and he explained to me what he knew of addiction. And it was it seems to me now, I can't believe I didn't realise this at the time myself, because it seems really, really obvious to me now. But what he did, he sat me down and he explained to me what we call a malady of addiction, disease of addiction. And he explained to me the phenomenon of craving, which means that once you start, you can't stop. He also explained to me the obsession of wanting to use again. So I was going through a binge using at weekend. I'd be really, after when it came to a stop, I'd start feeling really ill. I'd eventually recover, and I would start obsessing about using again. And an obsession is just a thought that kind of outweighs all other thoughts. So it kind of I might sort of use at the weekend, make myself really ill by sort of Sunday evening. I would promise myself that next weekend I'm not using again, because I don't want to feel as bad as I feel right now. And then throughout the week I'd start feeling a little bit better. And by the time I started recovering and getting over how bad I felt the weekend before, I would start thinking, well, it might be a nice idea if I just tried maybe a little half a gram later on in the pub. And once I'd had that little half a gram, the phenomenon of craving would kick in, and I'd want more. And it was perpetual. As I went on, I reached my rock bottom. And I remember I was driving one Tuesday afternoon, and I just broke down. I started crying I was driving down the road in my taxi, and my taxi didn't break down. I broke down. I think I had some sort of nervous breakdown, I found I was uncontrollably crying. And whereas sometimes you get a come down and you think, oh God, what's going on? You can kind of wipe your eyes and you can pull yourself out of it. I literally lost control of my bodily functions. I didn't let loose as such, but my shoulders was shaking uncontrollably. I couldn't drive. I had to pull into the side of the road. I didn't know what was going on. I was at a point where I'd promised my girlfriend that I wasn't going to use the coming weekend. It was a Tuesday, and all I wanted to do was go down a pub and use. I wanted to have a drink, and I wanted to get myself a bit of Charlie and do that. I didn't want to carry on working, and I was dreading the weekend coming when I couldn't use. I had no money, I was in doubt to my eyeballs. And for me, that was my own personal rock bottom. That is the point where I reached out. And it was kind of during that moment of like crying and breaking down that I remembered this conversation I had with a friend of mine in a barber shop. And he told me that he'd joined this fellowship thing. And I thought perhaps I should ask them for help. I'd been to a doctor's previously, a few months previously, and I'd tried to explain what was going on. And she sat there and she gave me antidepressants, and she told me to join a gym. And I asked her not to write it down in my medical records because my job every 3 years involves like renewing of licence, and my medical records could get checked. And I didn't want that to happen. I had a cocaine problem because I could lose my licence. That was my livelihood. So so her hands were tied to a certain extent. And so she couldn't really offer me any more help other than, I guess, the antidepressants and the advice of giving up drugs and joining a gym. I took the antidepressants.
Any good?
No. I was using too many other drugs. I was self-medicating on cocaine, marijuana, Valium and alcohol. I had quite a few lost weekends on crack cocaine. I can remember the first time I took crack cocaine. I always had cocaine powder in my pocket. Most people that knew me knew that. And I remember going out on a Saturday night down the pub and winding up at a party after the pub around somebody's house. And in this kind of dark corner of the house, there was a few people, and they smelt like really stinking burning plastic. That's what it smelled like, and I was like instantly attracted. Hello, what's going on over there then? And I knew them, and I made my way over, and they told me what they were doing, and I wanted to do it as well. And they offered to what we call washing up. They offered to wash up some of my cocaine to turn into crack cocaine, and we burnt loads of it, And I remember like my heart, I remember sucking on this pipe and my heart was just pounding so much that I thought my chest was going to burst. And then gradually as it subsided, I'm thinking like, that was great, I've got to do it again. Crack cocaine, yeah.
Frightened you?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, because whereas I felt like with powder, there was a limit. And sometimes you start using powdered cocaine, your nose would get blocked, and you're almost incapable of taking anymore. And I tried all sorts of things to clear that blockage in my nose. I would try things like snorting milk on a saucer, or just picking my nose until it got clear or something, so I could snort more cocaine. But with crack cocaine, because you're breathing it in, and you're burning it and breathing it in, you don't get that blockage up your nose. And your capacity to take more of it is increased because of that. Crack cocaine, I lost control a few times. I can remember one time I spent £750 in one night, and I lost the night somehow. And I remember coming to in the morning, and I hadn't been asleep. I just kind of regaining awareness of where I was, and I thought it was a Sunday morning. And it was actually a Monday morning, and I'd slept with this girl that had been working as a prostitute, and I'd had unprotected sex with her, and it kind of it frightened me. It did. What have I done? And this girl knew everything about me. I mean, there were things I told this girl that I hardly told anybody, and and I couldn't even remember her name. It wasn't the last time I used crack cocaine, far from it, but I was wary of it, because when I got into crack cocaine, I was bad enough on normal cocaine. On crack cocaine, I had no idea where I was, and or how much money I was spending, or what was going on. I'd lose days. I never used heroin, but I probably would have used heroin if I'd stuck around doing what I was doing. I knew people that did, and I was actually getting a little bit closer to that group of people. But I found a 12-step fellowship just before that happened. I wasn't morally against it by the time I joined the 12-step fellowship. Yeah, done loads of it over the years. Yeah, of course. I can remember doing pure MDMA, and the come downs being dreadful for me. Remember the nights taking and stuff as being fantastic. You're just blown away. The expression being loved up. I can remember many a night going out just loved up, being able to do things and express myself in ways that I would never do straight and sober. I would never cuddle another man and just feel genuine compassion and good feelings and things like that. But ecstasy would put me in that place. I took acid trips when I was young, and to be honest with you, I still don't think of it as an addictive substance, although it must be for some people. And I can remember taking it and being in a pub and thinking, this stuff ain't working, but finding it really bizarre that everybody's wearing blue lipstick. But everything else seemed really normal. And really, really bright, vivid blue lipstick. And I was thinking, this is a bit strange. I can remember having bad trips on magic mushrooms and paranoias and all sorts of things like that. I just saw that as part of growing up. I don't take any drugs at all. I'm loath to even take an aspirin. Right now, I'm clean and sober, 4.5 years now.
Caffeine?
Yeah, I drink coffee. Today's a Saturday, and so when I go to work, I take decaf tea in a flask, because it kind of, I drive a taxi and it makes me go. Caffeine makes me wee a lot. But on a Saturday, when I'm at home, I've probably had 5 strong cups of coffee today so far, and the time now is what we're looking at 20 to 5.
Okay.
And I woke up about 10 o'clock. No, not at all. I'm free to do whatever. I've worked a 12-step program. I help other people with drug problems. With the uniqueness of my own experience, I find that I'm able to help other people, and which is something that I enjoy doing. The first word I looked up in a dictionary when I read the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous was altruistic. Altruistic means dedicated to the welfare of others. And that's the foundation of living a spiritual life. And that is where I've got my recovery from. I found, first of all, when I first started going to meetings, it was a bit of a struggle. I found that I was clucking. And I'd go to work in a day, I'd come home, I'd have a dinner, I'd go to a meeting that started normally about 7:30 or 8 o'clock. It lasted for an hour and a half. I'd go for a cup of coffee up with a few people afterwards. And by the time I got home, it was 10, half past, and I'd got through another day clean and sober. And I kept going. I kept going like that for 1.5 years. I hardly missed a meeting. I'd say, for the first 9 months, it was difficult, but I didn't want to take any more drugs. I'd had enough, and I was taught that all mind-altering substances are just are as equally dangerous. So it meant no Valium, no cannabis, no alcohol. My son is highly aware of the fact that I'm an ex-cocaine addict, and his view is that drugs are to be used but not abused. And I don't seem to be able to communicate to him that my own personal thoughts are that addiction can cover anything from gambling to working too much, to smoking too much, to drinking too much, to taking too many drugs. There are many forms of addiction, and I believe it's hereditary. My grandfather was alcoholic, my father was alcoholic, my uncle was alcoholic, my brother's alcoholic, cousins with drug problems, and I believe it's hereditary, and I don't think that it skipped him. I don't think it skipped his generation. I think he's like me. But my son, he's 17, and his opinion is like that, you can use it and not abuse it. And I used to take him down the pub with me and stuff like that when I was very young, and he used to really like it. He used to really enjoy it. And I think when I stopped going down the pub, it was like, oh, he was like, he enjoyed that. He liked it when I used to go down the pub and like live that lifestyle. No, not really. Perhaps I should have. Perhaps I should have. I never knew what to say, and I recently went to a meeting, and I was talking to some people that were my son's age, and I was highly aware of the fact that I was having a conversation with these people that I couldn't have with my own son, because people don't listen to their parents, as daft as it sounds. And my son's got to see that he's got a problem before he starts. You can't do something about a problem if you don't admit you've got one. And and my son doesn't see that he's got a problem.
Do you think he has got a problem?
I certainly do, yeah. At the moment, he's using something that's apparently legal, some stuff called methadone, which is like sold on the internet as a legal cocaine, which I find frightening. And he knows where he can buy it. He's been caught selling it to school friends, that sort of thing. He goes out these raves for under 18s, and I believe he's knocking it out there. And he smokes cannabis with absolute impunity.
Does he drink alcohol?
Yeah, he's told me that he's Courvoisier is his favourite drink, which is like a brandy, a strong brandy. The truth of the matter is, he avoids me. He knows the problems that I've had. He knows. He doesn't need telling. He knows. He just thinks he's immune because he's him. It's just like I used to when I was young. My dad died of alcohol, but it never occurred to me, not once, not to drink. I'd say, listen, this stuff is dangerous. But I don't think young people, if they're made up their mind to use it, I don't think they're not going to. I don't think there's anything I can say that will stop them. It makes you feel quite useless. When I first started taking cocaine, I was told that it's only psychologically addicting. No, it's not just psychologically addicting, it's physically addicting. The mental obsession that you can get with cocaine is phenomenal. You'd be amazed. It's just it's overwhelming. And for years I found it impossible to stop. No, none at all. The only thoughts really that I ever had was, I hope I don't get caught because I might lose my job. And the reason I wanted to hang on to my job was because that gave me the money to keep on drinking and using. Sometimes you'd hear the news and you'd find out about a trawler getting caught in the North Sea or something like that with 20 tons of cocaine on it or something like that. And I remember I'd be sitting there at home thinking, shit, the price of cocaine's going to go up now. Obviously, when you're at your face and stuff like that, these things would come up amongst you as a group, and we'd think things like, they should make all drugs legal. I have such mixed feelings on this. There's part of me that has a lot of resentment towards the government for not doing enough to stop drugs coming into the country in the first place. And then there's part of me that thinks that if they legalised it, it would be more easy to regulate and to help people. I don't have the answers. I know that I was addicted to cocaine and alcohol, and I couldn't stop it, and I've given it up because I've learnt to help other people, and that helps me keep in a fit spiritual condition. And I try to keep my side of the street clean. I try not to worry about what other people are doing, just what I'm doing. If they did make all drugs legal, then it would take away the criminal aspect of importing it and the gangs that sell it, and like the people who go around sort of like mixing it up with dangerous chemicals, that sort of thing. And there's certainly like lots of, you know, there's a huge argument for like the fact that like a lot of street crime that goes on is committed by drug addicted petty criminals. You know, a lot of shoplifting. My experience of like when I go around to jails and try to give talks, you know, like about, you know, drug abuse, is that a lot of our jails are filled up with, you know, like what, you know, the men in there think they're gangsters. In reality, they're shoplifters that couldn't stop shoplifting because they were taking drugs. The media sensationalises alcohol and cocaine particularly. You know, they love to take photographs of people with a bit of white dust in their nostrils. You know, it's like, you know, for that, it's a paparazzi dream to take a photograph of somebody famous like that. And you know, it's just, they're just in it to make money and sensationalise things.
Do you think it has any bearing on what you've seen or witnessed about drug use?
I think, in the media? Yeah, I do think that, like, you know, if David Beckham, for instance, like got caught with some mysterious white powder around his nostrils, suddenly half the football pitches in England would be filled up with young kids taking the same stuff. No, never. Not once. Not even close. The 12-step fellowships are absolutely amazing. You know, in London, like, we've got lots of Cocaine Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, and Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. You could go to 3 or 4 meetings every single day, you know, like throughout the whole week. No, easy. I think I feel a little bit sorry for people who live right out in the sticks that don't have access to that sort of facility. The 12-step program's changed my life. And I kind of, you know, I've fallen into other addictions, but I've become aware of my behaviour. I found that when I first put down drugs, I started eating like you wouldn't believe, and I really ballooned out. I put on, I'm only 5'8" and I weigh 13 stone at the moment, but I ballooned out to nearly 17 stone. You know, just through eating too much. I couldn't stop eating. And actually, there's even an Overeaters Anonymous meeting. And I went there for a while. I've gotten into running, of all things. You know, I never saw myself doing something like that because, you know, I mentioned before I'm asthmatic. I had bronchitis. I smoked very heavily, and I lost weight on a crash diet, and I started putting the weight back on. And I thought, like, you know what, I want to go down the gym and try and get fit. And I went on a running machine and I started doing a bit of running, and some people in the gym said, why don't you try this 10k race that's going on locally? And I kind of thought, well, why not? I'll give it a go. And do you know what? I enjoyed it so much that I got home, went on the internet, I signed up for some more 10k races, and then I joined a running club. And now, like, you know, like, I live, eat, sleep and breathe running all the time. I did the marathon last year, I'm doing it again this year. I've lost count the amount of half marathons that I've run. I've got reasonably quick for my weight and, you know, for weight and age, and like, it's something that I would never have dreamed of in a million years. Running. You know, if he'd said that to me a couple of years ago, I would have laughed. You know, but you know, actually, I think like that could be addictive. But my advice, you know, to people around addiction is like that. You know, if you're doing something and you're not hurting anybody, and you can afford it, and you can laugh at yourself for doing it, then why not?